It is June 9th, 2025, and Israel has just seized a ship in international waters and abducted the humanitarian activist and crew on board as they were on their way to the Gaza Strip to deliver humanitarian aid to break the ongoing siege. And the international community has done absolutely nothing, even though on board that ship was a member of the European Parliament. All of this as Israel has carried out an all-out genocide against the Palestinians for 20 months now. And at least these kids did something, right? At least they got on a boat, they risked their lives, they brought the international attention to this ongoing genocidal blockade and bombardment of the Palestinian people. And we're going to get into all of the latest that is happening right now. But before we do, Jax is here to say hi to everyone and also to remind you all that your support makes my work possible, so you can sign up as a monthly paid subscriber anytime over on my page on Patreon or my page on Substack. You can also send a one-time donation on my page on Buy Me a Coffee. I'm so grateful for all of y'all's support. And now I'm going to take him and lay him down, and then we are going to get into today's video. And now let's get into the latest, as we have reports that Israeli forces have seized the Gaza Freedom Flotilla's Madleen vessel in international waters early Monday as it was approaching the Gaza Strip to break the siege. The IDF seized the boat and detained the 12 activists on board. The most famous on board was, of course, 22-year-old Swedish climate activist Greta Thunberg. Now, I've seen a lot of commentary about this. A lot of people do not like Greta Thunberg, right? Obviously, she spent her entire life being paraded around to various protests and other events. But I do think it's very notable the fact that now that she's an adult, she's turned her attention to the ongoing genocide, right? To the thing right now that so many people don't want to talk about, that so many people just want to ignore because it's not comfortable to talk about all of the Palestinians that are dying in Gaza right now, not just from the bombs that Israel is dropping or the Israeli sniper fire, but from famine, from malnutrition, and a complete lack of any kind of medical care. And yet, here's Greta Thunberg risking her life to draw attention to this cause, to draw attention to the fact that not only are the Palestinians openly dying in this ongoing blockade, but that anyone that tries to bring aid to them is not allowed to. And this has been the case for decades now. There is a reason why the Gaza Strip has been referred to as the world's largest open-air prison. This didn't start on October 7th, 2023. This did not start with a series of attacks, because I know every single time I talk about this situation, I get comments from people that are like, oh, well, Hamas should just release the hostages. And it's like, okay, if Hamas releases the rest of the hostages, are the Palestinian people going to be free? Are they going to be free to live on their land, to trade with who they want to trade with, to actually have access to the little resources that they have? Is that something that they are going to be free to do? And we all know that the answer is no. And speaking of those resources, is yet another reminder that this genocide did not start on October 7th. It was not in response to the attacks that were carried out by Hamas and other groups that made up the Palestinian resistance. No, this genocide has been in place for decades now. And that's why there has been such a focus on restricting the Palestinians in the Gaza Strip, restricting their access to anything outside of the very little humanitarian aid that Israel is willing to allow in. As foreign architecture noted in a report earlier this year documenting the destruction of the port of Gaza, for centuries, fishing has played a significant part in the Palestinian economy, culture, and cuisine. Prior to the Nakba of 1948, the Mediterranean Sea provided around 80% of the total fish produce in Palestine, making the fisheries sector a key source of food and employment in Palestinian villages. But then Zionist paramilitary organizations forcefully displaced hundreds of thousands of Palestinians from fishing towns and villages and forced them south toward the Gaza Strip. And so, as the report noted today, the majority of the fishermen in Gaza are descendants of refugees from the Palestinian fishing villages that were ethnically cleansed in 1948. Then came the Oslo Accords of the 1990s, and as 972 magazine noted, they restricted the permitted fishing zones off Gaza's coast, while the agreement stipulated the limit at 20 nautical miles from the shore. Israel never allowed Palestinian fishermen to venture beyond 15 and periodically imposed much heavier restrictions. These constraints naturally limited the types of fish they could catch, leading to an over-reliance on smaller fish and disrupting the balance of marine life. And apparently fishermen, much like children, doctors, journalists, aid workers, the list goes on and on, apparently they are all Hamas in the eyes of Israel. Because, as the Middle East Monitor reported, after October 7th, Israel killed more than 200 fishermen and forced nearly 4,000 out of employment. The onslaught on Gaza has resulted in the loss of approximately 4,600 tons of fish production valued at over $20 million. And that's just one of the countless ways in which Israel has carried out a genocide right before our eyes. They make sure that they are in control of everything that comes in and that goes out of the Gaza Strip. They make sure that they are in control, even when you're looking at the coastline, that they have full control over what happens there, over how much Palestinians are able to fish. It's insanely cruel, but this is genocide, right? When we talk about it, there is genocidal intent written all over everything that Israel has been doing to the Palestinians for decades now. And that's why they have been so controlling about any attempt at getting any kind of humanitarian aid even close to Gaza, because they know that if they were to allow this ship to go to shore to deliver the little bit of humanitarian aid that it had, well, then that would open the door and set the precedent for others to do the same. And that would break the siege as we know it. And that's exactly what the Madleen was trying to do. It was launched by the Freedom Flotilla Coalition, and it's named after Gaza's first and only fisherwoman. It departed from Sicily on June 1st, carrying human rights activists from Sweden, France, Germany, Brazil, Turkey, Spain, and the Netherlands. One of those on board was Rima Hassan, a French Palestinian member of the European Parliament, and she actually spoke out in an interview just hours before Israeli forces seized the ship, and she talked about the goals of this mission, saying, quote, "The mission is deeply political. The goal is to make Gaza accessible for aid, especially now as famine is being orchestrated by the Israeli regime. We see it as our responsibility to act. It's not a journey for fun or adventure. We do this to fill a political vacuum left by the inaction of states. We're denouncing the complicity of those states." And every state, with the exception of the axis of resistance in the region, has been complicit in this genocide. They have refused to act, refused to sanction Israel in any way, refused to do whatever is in their power to intervene. And it's important to note here that this is the second ship from the Freedom Flotilla Coalition, as its first attempt at preparing a ship to bring aid to Gaza resulted in Israel attacking the vessel with drones in international waters off the coast of Malta on May 2nd. And again, the international community just shrugged. Like, what is the purpose of international law or international waters for that matter if you're not going to apply those rules? If Israel is allowed to just do whatever it wants, as it has always done, which is what is continuing to this day. But just because Israeli forces did not use deadly force against the Madleen, at least not yet, it doesn't mean that they haven't used deadly force in the past when it comes to these ships, the very few that have attempted to bring humanitarian aid to Gaza. Because Israel did exactly that back in 2010 when they murdered 10 passengers aboard the Mavi Marmara part of a flotilla carrying aid from Turkey to Gaza, Israel carried out a commando raid and claimed that its soldiers, some of whom had rappelled onto the ship from helicopters, that they came under ambush and were attacked with clubs, metal rods, and knives. So what does that mean for those aboard the Madleen? Well, after Israel used drones to harass them, then blocked out all of their signals and stifled all of their communications with the outside world, and then seized their ship and then abducted everyone on board. Oh, well, then the Israeli forces filmed themselves giving bread and water to their hostages. And to just compare that to the fact that right now, hundreds of thousands of Palestinians are starving as we speak on the brink of famine. They do not have access to anywhere close to the humanitarian aid that they so desperately need. And yet, here's Israel handing out sandwiches and water and making it look like, hey, we're taking such good care of all of these people that we just took as hostages here, while forcing the Palestinians to starve. And now you have Israel's defense minister declaring that he plans to make sure the hostages are forced to watch Israel's October 7th movie before they are deported to their home countries. And yes, I say movie because I know that none of that footage includes the fact that Israeli forces were the ones opening fire on their own civilians on October 7th, an inconvenient truth that they simply don't want to talk about. But it's also important to note here that while the humanitarian aid that this ship may have been attempting to bring to the Gaza Strip, while it didn't get there, for the humanitarian aid that does make it into Gaza, that can still be deadly. And in a lot of ways, it is for the Palestinians who are attempting to get access to it right now. With reports noting that Israel has killed more than 130 and injured over 700 in its attacks on Palestinians near aid sites in just the last 2 weeks, with UN Special Rapporteur on the occupied Palestinian territories, Francesca Albanese, branding the US-backed Gaza aid system as humanitarian camouflage and a tactic of this genocide. So while all of the pro-Zionists are working overtime to co-opt the narrative, right, focusing on Greta Thunberg, calling this a selfie yacht, claiming that these people on board are somehow anti-Semitic by just trying to bring food and medicine and supplies to the, again, starving Palestinian civilians who are being starved intentionally by Israel. While all of that is happening, we have to remember that 12 people risked their lives. They got on a ship. They did something. They got out of their house. They made an attempt, and they brought the attention to the Palestinians who are suffering right now. And the international community did exactly what they have done for the last 20 months of this ongoing genocide. Absolutely nothing. And that's something everyone should be talking about. If anything in this video resonated with you, be sure to like it, share it with your friends, leave a comment. And as always, don't forget to subscribe. And if you want to keep up with all of my work, make sure that you're subscribed to my page on Substack. That's rachelblevins.substack.com. That's where you'll find ad-free videos and new weekly episodes of my exclusive series for paid subscribers called Sanctioned. You can also check out Sanctioned over on my page on Patreon. That's patreon.com/RachelBlevins. As always, thank you all so much for all of your support, and I'll see you next time.